don't think those qualities fit. So, without further ado, I think I'd like to welcome my fellow panelists. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. So, kindly, Omar, Collins, and Faris is coming back. So, in case you had other questions concerning cross-border payments and remittances, Faris is coming back, and yeah, you can channel your questions. Kindly, gentlemen, join me at the stage. A round of applause, please. And as they make their way to the stage, I think we all have some experience or have heard of a story of traditional cross-border payment methods. And you can just imagine and you can think of and the challenges that we used to go through in terms of time consumed, the inconvenience, the cost as well. So, gentlemen, as you introduce yourself, maybe you can tell us your name, who you're representing, and an experience or a story you've had of traditional cross-border payment and how tedious it used to be. How tedious it used to be, tedious. I think we'll start from the far end.
Yeah, thank you. It's glad to be back on the stage and coming in to discuss cross-border payments from the session with Fares is a good honor. It's going to make the conversation really interesting. My name is Colin Touko. I work for NCBA Bank. I look after retail digital solutions. NCBA Bank is a regional bank with presence in Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and footprint in West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. So that's the approach we have. And for us, remittance is a big space. And you're looking at it just beyond remittance within our own ecosystem and within Africa and globally. How we can facilitate and transform lives for users in Kenya and sending money out of Kenya and users out of the country sending money into the Kenya. So really want to ask you guys, talk to us more, reach out to us. If you have any solution, you want to understand our strategy, please feel free to engage us further. Thank you.
Omar.
Yes, Karibu, everyone. My name is Omar Fauzi. I'm representing Enza Group. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Enza. And my experience have been mainly in cards and financial payment solutions. In my around 15 to 16 years of experience, I've been doing nothing but introducing new products, new card products, new acquiring products. And the mission behind all of this is trying to facilitate the life of people when it comes to performing transactions, being able to accept transactions, and being able to enable either individuals or merchant to pay money seamlessly all across Africa. Through my experience, along with my team, we have started the first ever third-party processor in Africa. It used to be called MSCC. And we had the pleasure to be part of the introduction of scheme cards, acceptance and issuing in many of the African markets like Rwanda, like Somalia, like Egypt, like Libya, like Sudan, and many others. So thank you so much for having us, and it's a pleasure meeting you all. Thank you.
Fares, Cloud.
You've been here. So I think my first question, I'll start with you, Omar, as someone who is in the payment space. And you said you have 15 years experience in this space. So maybe what are the biggest challenges that we are facing right now that you're currently looking to solve in terms of cross-border payments in Africa?
Okay, I think you guys have better experience than anyone because you're the bankers in the end. But when it comes to challenges, I would maybe disagree with Faris as a start in his previous presentation, technology, because definitely technology is a challenge and we need to respect that. Regulations can be a challenge and everything has a solution. And one of the things that we need to consider, we are bankers, yes, we need to make sure that we generate tons of revenues for our organizations every time and every year. But the most important thing to consider is that we need to understand that we are here to facilitate life of people and life of traders and life of everyone in this continent. The bank products has been the same for the past maybe 150 years or something like that. It's a debit account. You have a, now maybe the trend is that you have a debit card, and then the plastic will vanish and we will start to use tokenization. So in the end, we are still consuming the same money. So as our role is that we need to make sure that we can enable the people to be able to transfer and accept money. And if you go to the World Bank records and statistics, you will find that we have around of 36 million expats, African expats living abroad outside of their countries. Those guys are transferring money was around, if I remember the number correctly, it's around 100 billion USD every year into Africa to their families for the education of their kids, for the medication and everything. How can we facilitate the life of those people using technology? I think a lot of answers are there. From my experience, when I come here to Kenya, I talk to people about cards, about acceptance of cards and issuing of cards. And the biggest answer I get usually is that we are not a market that serves cards. Cards are only for people who are traveling abroad. It's only the wallets. This is 100% correct. But if we talk about cards as the minimal position of a cards is doing transactions locally. But what is the broader picture is that we can use or we can rely on schemes like Visa, MasterCard, or companies like Enza to facilitate the life of people. MasterCard, as you have mentioned, is also Visa. MasterCard, they offer what they call MasterCard Send, where you can send money all across the globe from Africa and into Africa. And I think the regulator will be so happy about this because KYC is done on two sides. So there should be no challenge about this. The same for Visa cross-border transactions. This is available. How can we manage as bankers and as people in Africa? How can we do the interoperability behind all of this? How can we facilitate the life of people? How can we as banks compete with companies like Western Union, which are, as you have mentioned in your last session, it's the same process people are suffering from for the past 20 years. I have to go to the branch. My fellow, maybe sister or brother or father, have to send me money from the other side. If one number of my national ID number is wrong or one letter is missed, it will be a disaster. So why don't we make it easier? Why don't we respect that we are now, it's 2024, we are the bankers, we are the people who should facilitate the life of others. Why can't we rely on the international schemes to overcome those challenges? So this is why we're here, and I hope we will be able to provide you with some ideas regarding the facilitation that we are talking about and how to make people life much easier. Thank you.
All right. Maybe let me take it to Collins. Collins, from a banking perspective, and Omar has said that technology is also a challenge that's there in terms of cross-border payments. So, what opportunities do you see today from a banking perspective, and also with the technology that's coming up in Africa, and today and into the future, where from a banking perspective you can plug in and help improve cross-border payments? And also, do you see also partnerships with fintechs and companies like Enza in terms of promoting cross-border payments into the future?
Yeah, thank you. So from a banking perspective, I'll try and paint the picture give some numbers. Because banking is simply about, we either get deposits, we lend, we invest, but purely we get money and give it out. And then if you look at the contribution remittance to our GPT is about 8%, staggering between 8 to 10%. Last year, we had about 4.19 billion incoming remittance. That's the previous year, 2022, we had about 402, about 4% growth in the last 2 years, and is still to grow further. Beyond just the numbers of incoming or inflows coming through, there are warm blood or there are people behind them. And the numbers we have from the data from CBK and Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we're talking about more than 4 million users, Kenyans out there in the diaspora sending money home. Now, these are not just customers. These are not just deposits you're looking for. These are lives, people who depend on others to get that money to keep their day-to-day life ongoing. If you take an example of a nanny working in, or a nurse working in Saudi who is sending money back home, that money is coming back to support the spouse, the children, the parents. It's a whole ecosystem around that one individual user. So beyond the 4 million Kenyan citizens sending money home, there's a whole ecosystem that works, that is behind them. So from a banking perspective, the opportunity we see here is then how then do we provide that frictionless capability that if I am a nurse or I am a nanny and I want to send money for school fees or for food, I can do it in a secure way, a less expensive way, because you know the heavy lifting they do to get that money. So that's the opportunity we see in remittance business. And apart from the remittance that comes in, the professionals living in Kenya going into diaspora require lots of support. Yeah, how do they get their tickets and all this? That's a whole business opportunity for us in banking, in the banking space. So the approach we've taken as an organization, as an industry, is then facilitate seamless money coming and money going out. And for us as an organization, we've said, and we've shown this in the industry, when everybody else was shutting down the doors to some of the fintechs in the country, telcos included, we opened our doors, and we know how the story ended. So we are open for business. We are open our doors for partnerships, no matter how big or small. And what we've seen in this market, there's no one-fit-all solution for remittance. If you go, for example, and segment the inflows that are coming through, North America is one region, Middle East and Gulf is another region, Australia. I mean, all these have very unique nuances that if we go in as a bank on our own, it will take us maybe Z days to get it. But if I go into these regions with a particular existing partner, it means then the adoption would be a lot faster. So that's the approach you look at it and the opportunity that we have, that we've seen. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Faris, maybe before you respond to Omar, who disagreed with your with your presentation on technology, allow me to pick your brain on your cloud background, because you have a strong background in cloud. So with the opportunities that bankers like Faris has, and the facilities and the innovation with of Omar, what do you think? How do you think cloud can be plugged in terms of bringing these two together and supporting cross-border payments here in Africa?
Well, it's already happening. Certain banks that sort of play it. So how do I put this? Cloud tech. So there are two ways to answer this question. So I'll take the second one, the software as a service answer, which is what I'd mentioned earlier. It becomes easier to integrate with other companies, and it becomes easier to roll out products. Like in Nigeria, there's a product that allows, I forget its name, but it allows access to people's bank accounts for people to now onward lend to them. You can start building solutions that allow simpler integration once everything is in the cloud. Because typically, what prevents adoption of even tools like, the reason why there's a concept like private AI right now is because you'll find that the bank is completely in a private environment and none of the data is accessible in the public. So there are quite a number of tools and resources that they cannot leverage because of that. So the cloud mainly allows them to use tools for analytics, simpler integration. And if you start looking and thinking about how simple SaaS apps are to integrate, the only reason why it's not that simple to integrate into banking applications is security and regulation. So if you want to integrate, let's say, Xero accounting system or QuickBooks or whatever to any other solution, there's a solution like Zapier, which just allows you to connect them and you move on with your life. So some companies are building a similar thing for finance. that allows you to connect. Because in a perfect world, I should be able to connect my local bank account with my accounting system so that I'm not constantly exporting CSVs. And there's a whole chaotic process all multinationals go through. So the point I'm making is really around integration on the software side. That's the biggest opportunity I see.
Okay. So then we have talked about the examples of Africans who are living abroad and are sending. I think you talked in the region of 100 billion yearly, yeah, Omar, here in Africa. But then also in your presentation before, you've talked about an example of sending money to is it Guinea-Bissau or to say Chad within Africa. And there's the issue of compliance, and we've had that being talked about, I think, in many discussions yesterday and today as well. So maybe let me, Omar, in your operations and in supporting remittances or payments within Africa, what are the experiences or where you've met of how is it dealing with different regulators? Because you are sending money from Kenya and the CBK, you're sending money to another country and there's another regulator.
Okay, when it comes to the challenges about the regulators, I think we're all suffering somehow from that. And maybe the security people are usually happy because they are part of making us suffer, the infosec people, I'm sorry. And I think the regulators are right. They need to protect their countries and their markets from money laundering. And one of the things from my perspective as a card issuer and a card processor is that we, for an example, we can offer Visa cross-border services and MasterCard send kind of services. Those kind of services, it requires KYC to be done on both sides. So you know where is the money coming from and who's the money going to. If the central bank can be happy with something like that, and usually those are the kind of requirements, I think it is the bank's responsibility, for sure, to opt into those services. How many Visa and MasterCard issuers are here today in this very nice summit? I think all of you guys, all of your banks are issuing Visa MasterCards. How many of the Kenyan banks or even the Egyptian banks where I'm coming from or other banks in Africa are aware of the service? I would say 20, 30, 40%. How many are opt in the service? I would say even 5%. Maybe some banks in South Africa and few banks everywhere. We have the solutions, we have the things that we can overcome something like that. On the other side, what I was talking about is usually individual payments. But when it comes to traders, we're talking about 700 billion of inflows coming every year to Africa from exporting, and another 700 billion plus from importing. So how can we facilitate the life of those traders? There are other solutions that we can talk about. The central bank should be happy about it, and the regulator will usually be happy. I'm talking about things like the organizations like PAPS, if you have heard about it. And it's based in Nigeria. It is coming, and it's 100% owned by Afri-Exim Bank. And every central bank in Africa is a shareholder into this organization. And the role of this organization is to ensure traders can pay money to each other in their local currencies, make it as much easy as possible for the trade process to happen. Are we aware of this today? I think maybe we need to talk about it more and more and more to make sure that we can provide it also to our end users, either traders or buyers or sellers. Those are the challenges. There is a solution for it. It's our responsibility now as a bankers. I'm not a banker, but I consider myself among you to opt into those services, to do a lot of research. In the end, tons of profit will be coming towards you. You will be able to pull people into financial inclusion. You will be able to issue cards for people receiving money from outside. The central bank will be extremely happy. They will get people inside the financial inclusion, and they will have all details about everyone. And guess what? The money might stay inside the banks. Not just one coming from Western Union, they take the money and then they vanish. Nobody will know what they're doing with the money. But actually the money can stay inside the bank. You can give promotions to those card holders or those wallet holders. The more you spend, the more points you get, the more discounts you get. Thank you so much.
Okay, so you've talked about banks also playing a role in the solution of these challenges that we are facing in cross-border payments here in Africa. let me throw it to the banker on the stage. What would you say about that? And also, what would you suggest as other solutions to address cross-border payments?
Yes, thank you. So the numbers we're talking about, just for clarity, these are numbers that are coming through formal or regulated systems. That's IMTs and any other channel that is regulated. There's a still good portion of these funds that are coming in through the informal, can't trace and account for it. The opportunity is bigger. And just to pick it further from what Fawzia said, um, a lot of this is happening in other mature markets. For example, if you look at what is happening in Europe, they just passed legislation, the PSD2 regulation that supports open banking. Any organization today can plug into those open APIs for any bank in Europe, and there are providers that are aggregating this and then can give you one API that you can talk to any financial institution in Europe. There's also an engagement that is ongoing about even having standardization about APIs, because how will one organization handshake with another organization that is not locally available? So being, for example, the banking infrastructure organization, not for profit, that is trying to get most of the regulators globally into one framework that then we can talk about a single line of communication will facilitate these payments. So where does it then mean for us as a financial institution? We are highly regulated, and before this session, we were discussing with Faris. Then, so why is it easier for a small organization or a fintech to come in and move faster? We have different sets of customers that we have to attend to. So, for example, if you're in America, it's a largely card-driven economy. They have their payments largely are card-based. If you go to Kenya, for example, you're now highly adopting mobile wallets. If you go to a market like Saudi, for example, Middle East, yeah, the telco then there has evolved into a bank. Now is a licensed organization. But how do we then in our local market then integrate or talk to these two other organizations to facilitate that payment? That's where the fintech come in. Regulation is going to be very key because we've seen in the past, without calling names, what has happened to organizations that are not regulated, both in financial institutions, lending and remittance. We know how it ended. And the fundamental bit in this business is about to know the two end users, who is sending the money and who is receiving the money, which is about customer onboarding. And in the conversation we had yesterday, and even today from the presentation we had from both the two presenters that came through, knowing the customer is really fundamental, because then I can really verify the guy, the warm blood sending this money is Collins, and the guy receiving it is Faris. Then I close the chain entirely. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe Faris, you can also chip in with your possible solutions. And in your presentation, you talked about the similarities that we have with the challenges that are going on in Africa, and also what happened in Native America, and what can we borrow from them, and what are the solutions that you would suggest in terms of regulation and beating this end?
Okay, so I was just trying to draw a corollary, and so the US has one advantage: they are a single market, and so their paths forward. I think, like what you mentioned about the Afri-Exim Bank, from a more Pan-African perspective, we need to start aggregating. The EU has done this, even with like cloud, because they were very unhappy about what was going on with the likes of Amazon. They rolled out Gaia X. They are very specific technology platforms for banking. Yeah. The UK was able to sort of whip everyone into action and have a single instant payment platform. So we kind of need to have a similar approach, and they have touched on everything. So like a similar set of regulations. One of the problems with Africa is, and even Kenya, one of the biggest problems I personally have with this country is not even high taxes, it's policy shock, and tax is sort of tied to that. You can't predict how something will work. So if we can have like a framework that you can bank on, so that you can say, okay, banked over the next 5 to 10 years, adopt this payment standard. This is how we'll move money amongst ourselves. This is how we'll move money into a mobile money. This is how we'll deal with Forex. This is how we integrate. This is where the data will be hosted, etc. And keep it constant will be fine. But the way things work right now in this country, banks are busy drowning trying to figure out how to issue ETRs for 100 bob visa transactions. I mean, so that literally distracts from their business of rolling out payments. So the problem in that case is not even the tax, it's the policy shock that comes from it and the compliance effort that distracts them from their core business of offering value to their customers. So we kind of need, as a continent, to just standardize policy and leave people alone for some time, and this problem will be solved.
All right, thank you. I see Ian here. Ian, just a few more minutes before I tell people lunch is on you. Maybe do we have any questions from the audience? Just maybe one before I get the parting shots. I think we have one question there.
Hello, my name is Shai. I'm from Israel. Working in Kenya for the past like 7 years. We are a fintech called Avenues. We provide financial services and loans for agricultural businesses. And basically we finance them because the banks can't. And we also provide them with payment services where the banks can't. So my question to you guys is basically like, how do you see the new layer of payments, access to information that exists within the banks to fintechs like us? Because if we get back to the eclectic presentation, we saw there like this kind of diagram of those small fish, big fish. I disagree. I think that the small fish can work together with the big fish and not devour them. We have no way to devour the big fish, but we definitely want to work with them. So maybe some thoughts about that.
I think
If I could take that, yeah. You can hear me? Yeah, if I could take that. So particularly for Kenya, every bank, every organization has taken a niche of customers they want to serve. If I just could narrow it down to SMEs, and data that comes from our regulators tells us that we have about 6 million SMEs, formally and informally registered, and about 1.5 million not formally registered. So the regulations we have today, for me to lend to an SME, I really must unveil that veil and know beyond avenues who are the guys behind it. If I can't do that, then I can't tell you, I don't know you, so then I can't trust you with my money. And that opportunity is what you've seen new entrants, neobanks, and new fintechs getting into that space to provide financial services. And it has evolved to a very mature stage where, because we rely on the ability that you've gone further to identify that that shop next to the road in Kawangware, and now I'm willing to actually give funds to Avenues to lend to this guy. So we're just participating but at a different level. But the point is, from a banking perspective, the adoption in Kenya and financial inclusion has gone to that level where at least everybody has a product that can fit them. We may not be participating directly to lend to that person on the last mile, if I'll call it so, but we will provide that balance sheet to that partner who knows the guy at the last mile. And that's how the market is and the future where we're looking at, yeah.
all right, thank you.
There's one more.
Okay.
Thanks, panel. Mine is a comment contributing to the discussion, on payments and remittance. From a payments perspective, if money moves after, it is a second piece of a certain action. So meaning goods have moved. So our biggest challenge, especially in Africa, is that we have limited cross-border trade. So because of that, which is at about 15%, like in Kenya, we may be trading with Uganda, but it's actually not so much of trading, but it's because then it's a re-export, because then the Ugandans have imported those goods. But if you look at West Africa, as much as, let's say, Ghana grows cocoa, that cocoa has to go to Europe, then it comes to Kenya. So our payment trails would be actually to Europe, Switzerland, then come back to Ghana for that matter. But when you look at remittances, which is an interesting piece, and Collins did mention about that, and he knows a bit of maybe some works we've done before on ecosystems, and he did mention that you're looking at the person who is receiving and the person who is making the payment. The interesting bit is that those rails are a little bit disjointed, because if you look at the CBK 2021 survey, all that money, the bigger portion of it, the higher transactions go into real estate. But when, we're bringing in this money from either fintechs or whether the traditional guys, or it really doesn't, that connection to, let's say, real estate doesn't really happen instant. Though we do understand real estate could be a complicated transaction, but that connection to, let's say, paying a medical bill is not close enough. So my point being, technology is there, that is true. Regulation is also there to protect, and we'll continue having that. But to bridge that gap, people need to be a little bit more innovative. People need to allow, let's say, the regulator to be part of these discussions to hear the pains. Thank you very much, and good discussion.
All right, thank you. So I think I'm going to give the gentleman here, I think 30 seconds or 45 seconds here. As we close for a parting shot, and just give a perspective of what you foresee in the next couple of years in terms of cross-border payments. What do you see happening in the industry, local industry here in Africa? I think let me start from the near end this time.
Yeah, thanks. I'm seeing a lot of progress. I think the solutions by the likes of MasterCard, Visa, the pushes for more integration will take off. We're going to get more integrated. The payments will be easier, they'll be faster. It won't be where we want to be, but we are making a ton of progress. So yeah, we are headed there.
Omar.
Okay, I think the technology is here. The central bank is everywhere in Africa, is already giving the mandates on how to do the cross-border transactions. So we just have to adapt, and we have to remember one thing, that we are the ones, as the banks, we are the ones serving the end users. So we should get what is the reaction of every service and every function we offer to our end users. And if there is a pressure from a certain function, we should report back to the central bank and say, guys, we need to work on this and we need to make it relaxed. Instant payment networks are there. We have an instant payment network in Egypt, in Nigeria, in Ghana, I hope so in Kenya. In Rwanda, I'm sure they're working on one. How can we connect all those instant payment networks together? So everything is there. It just, we need to do the effort, and we need to opt in services, and we need to make sure the word interoperability is something we can see everywhere in Africa. I don't talk about interoperability in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Egypt, but all across Africa. Every country to be connected to the other one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So mine will be very particular with respect to the opportunity that we've sized out. And as an organization, we are open for business. We know we don't have a one-fit-all solution that we can say in remittance, both at the last mile, the individual level, and the corporate level. So any player in the floor across who has a solution that is up, we are open to a discussion of that nature. So come through. Our objective is to tap into both corporate level remittance and at the last mile level. So that's my parting shot. The opportunities there across the industry is enough for all of us. And let's go for it. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to throw it back to Ian, who is buying us lunch today. And yeah, I think we can have a photo. Yeah. Thank you.